Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Reena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started.
So, hello everybody. We're back today to talk about something that I'm very excited to talk about because to me, this is actually a very fun topic. And I was kind of surprised when, Bethany, you said that this is something that a lot of your clients ask questions about and struggle with. And so I'm really excited because to me, this is one of the most fun things that I do in my office, which I think there's very few things about the office that you can talk about that is mostly fun. You know, certainly there are fun things we do, but it usually comes with the, well, but here's the other side. And this is one of the things that I thoroughly enjoy. And I plan ahead and I can't wait and I get excited and giddy about. So the topic is team building.
Yes.
So tell me from your viewpoint, because again, I was surprised that this was a topic. And even, you know, you said, well, we can kind of introduce it here and then we can come back and do a couple of more podcasts on it. And in my mind, I'm like, what else is there to say? Like, it's fun. It's a party. Like, it's a chance to plan a party. So
yeah. Well, and I think it's so natural for you. It's been a part of your practice for a really long time that it's just team building events are second nature to you now. And you put a lot of thought into them. So I, as fun as it is, I know the planning of those team building events is not necessarily super easy or just like, oh yeah, we're going here, just book it. You still put a lot of thought into it, but it's fun.
But it's fun. It doesn't feel like work.
Yes. And so I think where a lot of my clients get stuck is even just the start of what do employees want to do? What are they going to enjoy? How do I eat? What options do we have out there? What do I even look at? I think they have so much trouble coming up with even just the initial ideas of what would be a good team building event that they get stuck there going, I can't even think of what my team would enjoy. So I'm just going to have to think on it some more. And maybe when an idea hits me, we can book something. But then ideas never hit. And so I thought, oh my gosh, this would be so helpful because you are so good at this and you've done it for so long to just present ideas that would be helpful to give dentists out there that are trying to come up with just the first idea. Just give me something that I can potentially execute. And you've done so many different ones that I knew we wouldn't be able to get this all into one podcast. So I wanted to kind of dip our toe in to this topic so that you give at least a couple ideas that you feel like have worked really well and then how you went about planning it. So I think the idea is really critical, but then also what are your steps to executing that idea? Although, before we dive into those two things, I want to talk about you place a lot of importance on this from a financial standpoint. I mean, you're investing in the event. You are, in many cases, shutting down the office. So I wanted to ask you before we kind of get into the specifics, why?
So even before I go there, one of the things you just said where, you know, people are like, oh, well, I've got to think of an idea and I'll think on it. And I think that's one of our biggest challenges as dentists. There is so much stuff to think about. And, you know, colleagues of mine that when they're starting their practice and I'm like, oh, just you wait, you know, because your thought is, how hard could this be? You go to a dental supply company, you buy your chairs, you buy your supplies, you buy your drills, you put an ad out, and people come like, why is this so hard? And then you get to, my colleague the other day was ordering some marketing materials, and the question back was, well, do you want it like just your phone number? Do you want your website? Do you want your Facebook on there? Yeah. But then it's going to make it this small if you add it, and then what colors you're going to add it in, because the color mug you pick was this, but now you've got to pick the font on there. And so, and she was just like, oh my God, like I'm having to spend 2 hours thinking about a marketing mug. And that, you know, every practitioner out there, owner can attest to that. It's like something that should be relatively easy. And then there's 30 facts around that and decisions that you've got to make to narrow it down And that's why team building probably falls to the
Bottom of the list.
Of the list, especially if it's not something you enjoy. Now, me being a people pleaser, I love going, ooh, so-and-so's going to love when we do this. She's going to be super excited about that. Ooh, I can't wait to do that. So another theme that we've talked about in other podcasts is listening. So listening to your team, kind of listening to the chatter in the break room, listening to things. So one that I'll come back to that one, but there was one that I heard one of my team members say something and I was like, aha, I'm going to make that happen. Because if she wants that, truly not everybody may want it. That's the other part that gets confusing is you're like, well, half these people enjoy sedentary activities and the other half enjoy outdoor activities. And so are you going to please everybody all the time? No. So going more into the question you asked was,
why do you invest the time and the money into this whole category?
So to me, it is, again, it's something I enjoy. So that's part of it. But the other part, because again, you got my husband who's very much not a feely. Didn't you just do something for them? They're going to start taking advantage of you, don't you? Whatever. So I can see that aspect as well. But to me, if I have happy people, then they are going to, stick around longer, turnovers less, be more forgiving if I am a B one day in the office because I'm cranky pants and, you didn't hand me the exact instrument I wanted and now I'm grumpy about it. You're going to be more forgiving if you like the office and you like your coworkers. To me, it's a great investment in, there's always tension at some point in the office between somebody. Like the front didn't get the estimate right. Well, y'all didn't tell me in a timely fashion. Well, you didn't look at the insurance, and that's going to happen.
Right.
But you're more likely to be forgiving and move on and help the person if you like the person. Even if you don't like the person, maybe if you understand the person. And how are you going to get that accomplished? It's usually on team building.
Right.
I help with a board exam. And I remember when I first started off doing that, that was 11-ish years ago. And they have all the examiners stay in the same hotel. And we do everything together. So for years it was in Dallas. And it's, even though I wasn't on vacation or I wasn't out of town, it felt like I was out of town because we were just this bubble. We were this entity. And I remember the first year I did it, I felt bad because I literally lived 2 miles from the hotel. I was like, I feel bad about the organization spending money on me staying in the hotel when I'm 2 miles down the road. And the gentleman at that time who was in charge said to me, we would really encourage you staying. Because examiners that can get to know each other and gel with each other on the bus to the activity, and we're all eating breakfast together and we're all doing all of these things together. Again, whether you like them or not, that's different, but you get to understand them. You get to have a certain level of comfort. And if we can do that, then when we're examining the candidates, you have a better flow of how that might go. And it makes the examination process more valid and more statistically, when the psychometrician looks at everything, it's like the examination flows better and you get better statistics on the exam. So fast forwarding, I didn't really connect that at the beginning. Again, there are a lot of things that I just do. And then I'm like, oh, maybe this is why I'm doing it. And I just had this conversation. I just got back from doing the exam for this year. And a colleague of mine was saying, yeah, you always do such great team building things. And I said, well, I think the team seems to think that it's all just, maybe I'm not the sharpest and I'm just spending money just to spend money, or maybe I'm too much of a people pleaser. There's some elements of that, but make no mistake, it is very strategic.
Yes.
In going if we are all together. And that's some of where that mentality and concept came from, was this very, he writes books for our pediatric dental world. And he's the one who was a visionary for the board. And so to me, it was to get that feedback, and that mentality was, I am investing in my team so that we work more harmoniously. That leads to better patient care, better patient outcomes, better internal marketing. Yeah. And then these are the people that start coming back. And if we were all separate cogs just functioning,
right,
it's not like you'd have a bad outcome, but certainly it's not a well-oiled machine.
Right.
And it attests to, when we look at our top referrals, it's internet, insurance, and word of mouth. We've finally gotten there the last 3 or 4 years, such that normally if I'm kind of going, oh, well, what are we going to give this office for Christmas? Before I had, our top 3 or 4 offices, we don't have that anymore. I really don't need to go market to other dental offices anymore, or even pediatricians, funny enough. Yeah. Those are not my main referral sources anymore. It's word of mouth. And so I go back and say those were worthwhile investments rather than investing in a $5,000 postcard. Not that that's not invaluable and not that that doesn't work too, but I choose to spend that $5,000 on 2 team building events that my team get to feel appreciated. From another podcast, if you remember, that's the number one thing for the last 1.5 to 2 years that I've heard when I'm interviewing employees. They want to feel mattered. They want to feel seen. They want to feel important. They want to feel like they're a part of the team and an important part of the team. And so team
that's
building,
hard to do day-to-day in day-to-day operations.
Almost impossible to do day-to-day. I mean, we've got other things we're focusing on.
Yeah.
But strategically, if I have planned out this event, I mean, it doesn't have to speak to everybody.
Right.
But I think almost everybody on my team appreciates some aspect of it. So, talking about how we do it, isn't it expensive? Because now you're not getting production for the day, and you're spending money. There is 365 days are not all jam-packed and full of patients.
Right.
It's not. So looking ahead and going, okay, when are we anticipating times that are going to be slow? So in a pedo office, traditionally speaking, school starts back in Texas mid-August-ish. And between August and really kind of October, you can hear the crickets chirping. There is not much going on. So we always plan a team building around then. Next time we do, typically in January when school's about to start back, or that first week back after the 2.5, 3 week Christmas break, that's another time to tackle for a team building.
You also do a Christmas.
I do. And Christmas is usually that first week of December.
Exactly.
Why? Because we just had Thanksgiving break. And between people scheduling over Thanksgiving break and then 3 weeks later, Christmas break coming up, that 3 weeks is usually dismally slow. Now, from an overhead perspective, I've got to have my whole team, everybody still wants their hours, but we've got, a quarter of the number of patients, half the number of patients to be served. Right. So either I continue to say, go home, go home, go home, and have a really ticked off employee who's trying to earn for Christmas, or I could take the day and say, you know what, we're going to be closed on this Thursday. Patients still get seen because we're still open Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. And instead of having a lukewarm Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, we've pushed the Thursday patients onto those days. It's more productive. Assistants, like I can feel better that I've justified your pay, all of that. And so now we're taking Thursday as a team building day. I also do I pay them? No, I don't. It's an optional event. So if you wanted to go temp that day, you certainly could. And because I've announced that at least, 2 to 3 months in advance that there will be a team building day that day, they can plan accordingly. If it was a day that you would rather your kid's field trip is that day, and now that lets you do that, great. You wanted to earn, go temp. You don't want to go to team building and you would rather be the one in the office to answer phones because the girl who normally answers phones wants to go to team building. So,
totally fine, yeah.
So there's very little to lose on a day like that unless you're a practice that you are bustling at the seams every single day.
Yeah.
Then maybe it's going to be a little harder for you. But no, I pick a day during the week because weekends, you want to be with your family.
Right.
Evenings, you want to be with your family. So for me, I like to pick a day during the week to spice things up and make the week more fun.
And I think because you've done it that way, you have really good attendance at those. So it's very rare that you've got a bunch of team members missing from a team building event. Why? Because it's not eating into their personal time on the weekends. They're not having to leave family to come to an event. It's carved out into their normal work week for the most part. And so they're there. Very rarely can I look back and think of people that missed. It's become so much a part of the culture. Like this is just what we do to connect with one another that I think people people really genuinely want to be at these events.
And then with that too, it's, are you going to be cheap?
Yeah.
And kind of cheap out? And I'll give an example of that in a minute. Or they know they're going to be well fed. They know they're going to be fed, period. I don't do anything without making sure, because to me, that's, you know, the stomach is the way to your heart, whatever that is, right? But it's very true. To the point of, I worked for a person years ago, and he was planning a team building. And he was having a party bus come. Everybody board the party bus. He was giving them money. They didn't know where they were going. We were going to a mall. They were going to be able to have X amount of dollars to go shop. And then we were going to a steak place for dinner, right? So he was spending a lot of money. And he kept saying, well, we're going to finish patient care by noon, but the bus is coming by 1, and we need to make sure everybody's on the bus. And so, you know, again, the people that didn't bring their lunch or didn't do whatever. And I said, you know what, to avoid that stress, why don't we just bring in some pizzas?
Yeah.
And I was very surprised at his answer. He was like, no, I'm already getting a bus. I'm already taking you shopping. I'm already feeding you dinner. The least you can do is buy your own lunch. So no, go grab your own lunch. And then the team building starts at 1. Where I can certainly appreciate and understand that. My mentality was, that's an area of going to be stress for the team, going, I've got to finish up patient care. And you never know, patients show up late. This kid didn't cooperate. That mom had 50 questions. I mean, there's, to think that we're going to finish right at noon or 12:30, it is stressful.
Right.
Chances are that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Especially on a day of team building,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
There's always something extraneous that's going to happen. And so now it's added this element of stress to the team. And in my mind, I'm going, the whole thing was to celebrate the team.
Right.
We're celebrating you. We're showing our appreciation. We're making this day fun for you.
Right.
And right before we go do that, go stress out.
Right. Yeah.
Like to
Make
me.
sure you're there at 1 o'clock, you
Right.
know?
And figure out your whatever. So could they have packed their lunches? Yes, they could have. But just knowing some of these team members, they just never did that. They always went to go grab lunch. So I said, can I buy the pizzas? Because to me, it was $50, $60
I was about to say
tops.
50, $60.
I'm like, you're already spending $3,000.
Yeah.
What's $3,000 and 50?
Yeah.
So to me, it was kind of nonsensical
Yeah.
to do that. Although I certainly saw where he was coming from too. So same philosophy, almost every Friday that we work, Fridays tend to be our busiest days.
Yeah.
And we work through lunch, so it's a shorter day. So shouldn't people bring their own snacks? They should. But let's be real. It's Friday. Most people have had to deal with their kids' stuff and packing this and doing that and all of that. I can tell you, me personally, knowing that I've got lunch the next day,
Is exciting.
it's Papa John's. It's nothing fancy. But it's not even exciting. It's relieving.
Yeah.
No joke. I will get up going, okay, well, at least I have lunch coming today.
Right.
How
If
ridiculous
that's
is
relieving
that?
to you, you can only imagine how relieving it is to your team members.
Right. Even to, so yesterday was a school holiday. It was Columbus Day, Indigenous Day, etc. It was a day off of school. And on Sunday night, I had been gone all last week. And so Saturday night, got home. Sunday, trying to process and get my bearings. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I knew that I had already planned that we were going to bring in lunch. Mm-hmm. And my team knows, holidays, I bring in lunch. Mm-hmm. Thanksgiving break, I have lunch every day. Christmas break, 2 weeks, I bring in lunch every day.
Yeah.
And most people are like, you are insane. What are you doing? In my mind, I'm like, you know what? On these busy days, on a school holiday, we're going to produce double of what we produce on a regular day.
Right.
I can spend $100 feeding these people that I know we're going to run over into lunch. I know we're going to have to start back sooner. I know we're going to be here later because we're seeing double the volume.
Right.
So yes, I could say bring your own lunch. Nothing wrong with that. Or I could take one thing off your plate. You know your hot meal is going to be waiting for you. So even if you didn't get off at noon because you got stuck in that op, and the other one's going to have to come back at 12:40 instead of 1 because we know these patients and we don't want to be here till 5.
Right.
But if we don't get going, your hot lunch is right there for you. Is one thing I took off. You had a good meal. You recalibrated and rejuvenated.
Revamped in that 20 minutes that you had, and lunch was there.
And the $100 is worth it because you know what? We just produced 16.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like whatever the numbers are. but it's a drop in the bucket when you look at it in a big way. And as dentists, as people, we can tend to be very petty with the little things.
Yeah.
And I start going, but what is the impact of...
Exactly.
What is the long... I spent $100. I spent $75 bringing in Papa John's, and I threw in the cookie dessert too.
Yeah.
And darned if we all weren't just thrilled.
Yeah.
At
And
that.
to be able to have a day full of patients that experienced non-stressed, for the most part, we reduced the stress level of the team so that they're functioning at a higher capacity. They're not wondering at noon, oh no, how am I going to get lunch in today? Because this is going to run another half hour. They know lunch is waiting for me there. And now we've got a lower stress level employee. Not to mention, they feel seen. They feel heard. The doctor's not going, just figure out this day. We're all stressed. Get over it. Like, go get you some lunch and figure it out. You're recognizing today is a higher stress day. It's a higher production day. So it's going to come with those stresses. This is the least I can do is feed you today. So the employee is feeling appreciated in that.
And bottom line, who do you think the person that ran and grabbed Chick-fil-A, Taco Bell, McDonald's, barely had a chance to eat it or ate it cold if their coworker went to go grab it for them, whatever it may be, at 3:00 that day, are my chart notes going to be what I need? Is the energy going to be there? Is that patient experience going to be the same as the patient that came in at 8:00? So to me, I look at it as a necessary expense to ensure the quality of what is being served to that patient.
Right.
So yes, I can say it like, oh, I'm just trying to make you happy and make sure you get fed. Make no mistake, that was very strategic. I want to make sure that it's not somebody who's hangry at 3:00 or, ate a bar or some junk.
Yeah.
And is crashing, at
crashing.
3. And now the patient's not experiencing, and the assistant's not listening when I'm calling out. I'm getting frustrated. Like, the quality of care is a lot higher for me to spend that extra $100 to make sure that everybody's fed and ready to go.
Exactly. And it's not done, I think this is critical when we're talking about team building, it's not done in a begrudging way. You're not bitter at the end of the day when you're like, gosh, and here I go, I'm feeding them again tomorrow. Oh, they're always taking from me. Take. If we go at it with that mindset, first of all, every time we spend a penny, we're going to become more bitter about it. And I think second of all, it's defeating the purpose. If they get that feeling, if 2 weeks into Christmas, you're belly aching about how much you've had to feed them and how they're always hungry and you're always feeding them, well, then you've just shot yourself in your own foot, because the whole point was to make them feel seen, heard, and appreciated. But now you're griping and complaining about it. So I think that's one of the things with your mindset, you've released that to go, no, this is an investment.
So then when you look at how did I release it? Because there were times I was bitter.
Yeah.
So my release comes from, I truly do appreciate and like each person on my team. And there are times where I'm like, okay, this newer person that's been here, and I don't really want you to go to team building. Well, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be bitter about spending the same on you as I'm spending on her. I'm so excited to take her.
Yeah.
Like, I know she's going to love this event. And then there's the one that I'm like, you've been annoying to the team for a while, and I don't feel like taking you. And I have canceled team buildings in the past. If I didn't feel good about it, I've canceled them.
Yeah.
So again, there comes my feely. But when it is a team that I do appreciate, and I know will appreciate me back. So before you can dive into a lot of the team buildings and do it the right way, you've got to like your team.
Right.
And then that's a whole nother 10 podcasts about how do you like your team and how do you weed out the people that you don't like and how do you keep the people that you do like.
Yeah.
Because I can totally see going, I'm going to be bitter about this. And it's because I don't really like you. And that's a whole nother problem.
Yeah.
So sometimes we get to that point because of team building, because I'm like, no, this person has been, they don't seem respectful here. They don't seem respectful there. I can see them shirking this and they're not doing that there. Not that every employee has to be perfect or has to be their best version of themselves all the time.
Right.
Most of the time I do see a better version of themselves after team building. You do.
Yeah.
And then when I don't, that's when I'm bitter.
Yeah.
But I feel like I haven't felt that way in years. I felt that way when I was doing it, and kind of begrudgingly doing. And there were these two people that I didn't really want to go, and sure enough came back, and I was like, why did I take those two? Like, I'm not feeling any satisfaction, fulfillment here. And so weeding those people off the team, once you've got a team you like, you want to do stuff with them.
Absolutely.
You want to go out and show them appreciation because they're able to help you carry out your vision.
Exactly.
And, you know, like we've said before, you can't do it without these people, but I better like you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think, so that's kind of the basics of it, where if you're in that mindset going, I can't afford to take this day off, I bet you can.
Right.
You need to strategically plan, and then plan for, okay, so then are you going to be open Saturday that week? Or how are you going to, if it really comes down to production or patients need to be seen and we don't have any free time, then you might have a little bit more challenging
We got to
time.
be more strategic.
You got to be more strategic.
And maybe that's opening a couple hours late and you're doing a brunch date somewhere. Maybe that's closing a little bit early, taking an extended lunch. Maybe that's carving out little moments of time to get some appreciation type team building in. Or maybe that is where you're looking at, you know, an evening, and might you have lower attendance at that event? Possibly. And just accounting for that and preparing your mind for that so that you're not frustrated when the event comes and you've got, you know,
people dropping and not coming. So back to, again, if I like the team, usually the team likes the team, which is why I like the team, because everything's gelling. So in our case, most of our events, people want to be able to spend time with each other outside because they don't get the opportunity to do that. Yes. So I think that helps with the attendance factor. The next big factor is the childcare situation. But if I've told you 3 months in advance, I think because, again, my team knows they're going to get fed, it's going to be a good meal, and they know we're usually going to do something fun.
Yes. So
they want to go. And if I spring it on them 2 weeks in advance, they may not be able to make accommodations. But if I've planned it out ahead, then they know it's coming and they can make the accommodations they need to make sure that they're at team building. Christmas, we used to do where we would see patients until a certain time and then go to lunch. So we've never done the Christmas dinner thing. We've always done lunch. And the last couple of years, that was so stressful because, again, it was always, that's when the emergency came in. That's when the patient was late. That was, so frankly, now we don't. And then, so once I quit saying, okay, we're not going to see patients anymore that day, it's strictly going to be activity. But then I was like, well, how could I make this still somewhat productive? And so we would bring in a speaker, or we would have a team meeting. And that would be a day that we're going to hash out stuff from 8 to 11, and then we're going to go to lunch at noon the rest of the day. So that way the team can at least get some hours in, and we're doing something productive. And then I think the last couple of years, I just kind of quit doing all of that because, again, we pick that, usually that first Friday in December. Right. In a pedo office, Thanksgiving break just came and Christmas break is about to come. So there are very few people that want to come in, even with Friday being our busiest day. Now, could I change it to Monday? We're closed most Mondays. I could. But for me personally, again, I'm not so much into the business-minded side of it. For me, I enjoy being able to not have to worry about patients, not have to plan an agenda and think, I just want to go have fun.
Yeah. And to end the week that way.
The anticipation of what's coming, and then go into my weekend. So I could do it. So that's sometimes I base things where I'm like, well, this would be fun on a Monday, but then I gotta work on Tuesday. And other times I'd be like, no, that'll be okay. Let's do that. Right. And then other times it's fewer for Fridays. Fridays tend to be one of our busiest days. So from a production standpoint, you know, we tend to, it's easier for people to do on a Monday, because in our office we rotate who's working on Monday, so chances are people weren't going to be counting on that day for production anyway, right? Or earning anyway. So it's very strategic of how we plan that,
right? And I think too, coming back to, it's an investment because you've shut down one of the busiest days of the week, and so you are investing that production that you would have made. You're willing to part ways with that production. But to your point earlier, the time that you invest on that day and the productivity that can yield in your team over time will absolutely make up for that production and then some. So I think we've got to kind of change our mindset on that.
Absolutely. And again, it's not being strategic. I think the people that are going, well, I can't lose the production on that day. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Because again, it's a Friday that nobody had anything going on. Like chances are you weren't going to see a lot of patients. And you can firm them out and make other days more busy. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't really think about. They're like, no, I need to be open all 5 days. I'm going to see these I'm going to see 20 patients a day for 5 days.
Right.
Well, I would rather see 35, 35, and 30 in 3 days and have my 2 days off.
Yeah.
So it's just, whichever balance you're going to have. But for most practices, there is a day. You just need to think about it and open your mind to that.
Exactly. And then I think the other thing that I wanted to hit on before I want to ask you for a specific example is you make these big enough and exciting enough that people feel like they are missing out if they don't come. So in other words, you make this eating at a certain restaurant that potentially the employees on the team wouldn't be able to afford, if not for this event that you've offered them. And so I think that's an important factor in this is if we're building team events around, hey, let's take an extended lunch and run over to Chick-fil-A and hang out at Chick-fil-A together. You're not going to have the same level of buy-in as, oh, wow, we've got this, Valentine's event where we get to go and eat at this fancy steakhouse and I would never be able to afford going there if it weren't for this event. You're going to have a lot more people clamoring to go to that event than the extended lunch at Chick-fil-A. So,
well, and the whole point is to show your appreciation.
Yeah.
So if your appreciation extends that far out that all you can do is Chick-fil-A as something special.
Yeah.
That to me is kind of sad because that to me means either you're not paying attention and not valuing these people the right way, or you've got people on the team that you don't like and that are not contributing to the success of what you want out of your practice. And so one of those two things needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
If your idea of a great idea is taking an extended lunch and taking them to Olive Garden, that's a nice thing to do. That's not a wrong thing at all. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. But to take it to making somebody really feel special, taking an extended lunch and going to Olive Garden is still about you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's still about, oh, well, yeah, you're special. I want to acknowledge you, but we've got to do it in between patient care because my schedule needs the production for the office. So it's still a you factor.
Yeah.
And so my encouragement would be make it not about you.
Mm-hmm.
Make it about your team. It's so much more rewarding and they feel it and they know it.
Right.
So to me, that's kind of, womp womp.
Yeah.
It's
a letdown. You're like, you really don't value me. And this team building event says you don't value me, which is not the message that we want to send.
Which is also, again, because you spent money. You spent money. You saw fewer patients to extend lunch out, and you did pay for Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
And then if you're the one, though, going, my team didn't appreciate me, would you?
Yeah.
If you were the associate dentist and that's what your doc dentist did for you was gave you 30 extra minutes and took you to Chick-fil-A, how would you respond to that? And I think that's one thing that a lot of people lose sight of is, well, I don't think that would be anything special. No. Okay, well then why are you turning around and acting like it
is special? Yeah. So I want you to give me one, and again, like I said, I knew that we would do a lot of background and get an idea out here, and then we will circle back to this topic in other podcasts. But give listeners one team building idea that you've done that you feel like is well received among your team.
So a couple of things that we do all the time, like Christmas, we will always do. Now we'll go to lunch. Doesn't have to be fancy, but we go to it used to be Benihana, then after the pandemic. And so I can't remember what we did. Oh, I remember what we did last year, but I'll save that for another podcast. So we always do a Christmas lunch and we always do a Secret Santa because that's so much fun. And we always do something fun and nice. And they know that that's where they're going to get their Christmas gift. And so that's a good one. Now, again, you don't want to go, you don't have to. It's a Friday. You would rather go out of town with your family for that weekend because you have the day off. Go for it. But very few people want to miss it because you're not going to get the gift if you didn't go.
Yeah.
So they usually want to go and they love the time with each other and the Secret Santa. It's just a tradition we've had. And so it's just fun. They don't want to miss that.
And I love the Secret Santa aspect of it because it gives team members the chance to really get to know another team member in a different way. And I mean, the gifts that have been exchanged are often so thoughtful, so spot on for that person. And so I think that's a really unique way of connecting your team members to one another as well.
And that too, if you're going, I work in the back. I'm not up there with Susie. I know nothing about her. So how we do that is Susie the week before would have gotten a slip that she puts down Susie, and then you put down 3 things that you like. So I might put down, I like coffee, I like funky socks, and I like funny mugs. Yeah. Well, great. So the person that doesn't know me that well, because she just started and now she pulled the doctor's name and, oh gosh, that's intimidating. Well, I like funky socks. Okay. I just made it easy for you. And now you're kind of going, okay, well, what kind of funky socks would Kuba like?
Right.
And so you might be able to ask the team, what is it? And of course we put a cap on the limit, the dollar amount. And usually it's $20, sometimes 30. I let the team pick, because I don't want anybody to feel like, hey man, it's Christmas and I got to buy an extra gift now. So I don't want it to feel that way. But a lot of times somebody might make something for you, or you might go, it's about the thought that counts. And the team is very appreciative and respectful to each other for that. One of my assistants pulled my name and I was like, I feel really bad for anybody who thinks that they've got to give me something monumental here. Well, she knows I love the Cowboys. And so she went to the whatever store, bought a little clay pot and this glass whatever, and painted it. So it looks like a Cowboys, whatever it was. But the whole thing probably cost her $10 to make. Yeah. Probably took her 2 or 3 days to make. Yeah. But how much did I treasure that?
Yes.
Nobody else has this. This was hand picked and made for me.
For you. Yeah.
By her.
Yeah.
$10. So it really does, pay for itself. The reach is
ongoing.
The
connection that they have then going forward to others is so special.
Yes. And then the other thing that I started doing, 3-4 years ago, and it was one of those things that I just kind of went, this would be nice because there's a lot of single folks in our office or whatever it may be. And I think it would be so much fun to take the team to go eat here because a lot of them haven't gone. So for a couple years we did. It turned into the Kuba Loves You Valentine's Dinner. So that's what it's called. And so you don't have to come, but we've kind of said it's our chance to get dressed up. I mean, as grown women, where do we get to go get dressed up a lot?
Right.
Some do, some don't. But again, it's your chance. If you want to put on your sequin dress, go ahead, or get your hair did or whatever you're doing, right? So for a couple years, we went to Three Forks. And then last year, because of pandemic and blah, 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 we ended up booking, there's a restaurant in this, trendy part of town here, and they had an Airbus you could rent. And so it was on the rooftop, which I was like, that's kind of COVID conducive because it was the coolest thing. Like, who gets to have dinner in this Airbus? You know what? That dinner probably cost me $2,000 to $3,000. Yeah. So it wasn't cheap.
Yeah.
The amount of how special they all felt. I was not cheap with the dinner. Here's the set menu, but there was steak on there. There's fish on there. There was appetizers on there.
You don't want to book that and then be cheap, right?
Yes.
So I think that's what's critical about the connection that you've made there is you already know I'm going to be investing a lot. And you don't want them to feel limited. They're at this super nice restaurant, and you don't want them to have that. You only have the chicken option.
Yeah.
And there's only one appetizer. You can't choose anything else. And no, one glass of wine. That's all you get. You're just like, eat, enjoy. And I think that's what's critical because yes, maybe that cost you an extra few $100 because people took the liberty to order the steak or the nicest thing on the menu. But it squashes it if you don't spend that and you look like you went cheap on this really nice venue.
Right. And again, I go back to what I like that. When you're looking at how nice this is and you've looked up where we're going and you see all of this and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
So I get to try the bruschetta and get the, garden salad and I can pick a lasagna or a chicken parmesan.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There's still going to be appreciation, but it could be so much better. And if I'm already spending $2,000, I just spend another $1,000. Yeah. It's not going to break my bank.
Right.
So you don't have to spend that much. That's something that's, according to you and what you have and where you've got. The point is, if you're going to go somewhere, be strategic about where you're picking and make sure you don't look cheap.
Right.
So if you did it at your condo rental that you can rent for free so that you're not spending money on the location, but now you're going to bring in, instead of Papa John's, maybe you're going to bring in E Fratelli.
Yeah.
And maybe so think outside the box there and make sure you're not making it feel cheap.
Right.
Put yourself in that position. Would you feel like somebody cheaped out on you? And if you feel that, then that's not the event that you should be doing. So, and then again, I don't think I've had a moment thus far where I'm like, I wish I hadn't done that. Mm-hmm. I cannot believe I spent $3,000 on these ladies, and this is how I feel now. Really, that's how you're going to act and how you're going to talk about me? Because again, we've had our team for a while now that truly, I feel, unless they're all really good actresses, that I really do feel like do value me and appreciate me, and I want them to know the same back.
Right.
I do value you. And if you don't value them, then that's a problem.
Right. Exactly. So, and again, I agree with you. I feel like that leads to another podcast on making sure that we've got a good team that we want to invest in and that we're happy to invest in. So we can definitely circle back to that. And then we will definitely circle back to this topic because you've done this for years and years and have so many creative ideas that I want to pick your brain some more on that.
One of my favorites was Christmas last year.
Yes.
And so I do want to talk about that one at some point, but that was a really fun day. And I would say that every person there will remember that for
memorable.
Yeah.
That's a good way to end the year.
And actually the other thing I want to say is it doesn't have to be thousands.
Right.
There are other things. There's other ones that I've done that were 100 or 200 and everybody was just as happy as the one because it was different, but it was still. So we'll get into that in another podcast.
I think balancing it out, and not everyone has to be this super $2,000 or $3,000 event. You can balance that out with some smaller ones that still feel very unique and special.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. You've got to make the person feel special, and it's got to be 1,000% sincere.
Yeah,
and it can't be, look what I did for you, now you better perform for me. That you've lost it. Then don't bother. Don't do the team building. If it's a transactional thing, then don't bother. But if you're ready to take it to the next level of this is truly my work family,
right?
How do we appreciate and get to know each other, and how do we get to celebrate each other?
Right.
Then this is something that you want to
invest
explore.
in. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.